Hello, viewers. Welcome to this exclusive fireside chat between two industry leaders. This fireside chat is a part of a thought leadership series on mapping the business impact of learning. This is a special series created to exchange ideas and best practices on learning and development strategy deployed by industry experts to mitigate skill loss and prepare the workforce to hone future skills. I'm delighted to introduce the two speakers for today's session. We have with us Deepak Arora. Deepak is a learning and development professional with over 24 plus years of experience, encompassing nearly 17 years of qualitative experience in learning and development, transformation across organization. He has a keen interest in the next-gen learning technology platforms with a key focus on creating digital learning ecosystems that align to the organization needs of skilling. He is presently associated with Birlasoft as head L&D at Birlasoft. Along with Deepak, we have Raghav Gupta. Raghav leads Coursera in India and APAC. He is responsible for growing Coursera's customer and enterprise business in the region, thereby bringing the world's best education to learners across Asia Pacific. Once again, welcome Deepak and Raghav to this fireside chat. My first question is for you, Deepak. The question is, what are some of the major skills requirement you see today? And how do you keep up with the pace of change of technology and the shelf life of talent becoming so short?
Okay, so couple of things which I would want to kind of talk through. First of all, when we speak of major skills, although the market talks about that, hey, we are looking at IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and quite a few other technologies, cloud, cybersecurity, and you'll see a lot of host of them. But in my opinion, at this point, when I see skill development at the entry level remains the same. So I don't think so. The basics have changed in the last few years. The basics remain the same. But what has also happened is that for each and every of the IT organizations, their client need for moving to a cloud-based system from an in-premise to a cloud kind of an approach has obviously led to a lot of focus on digital and its related technologies. Digital, although as a word has been used in different, when I look at the word digital, we say we are developing digital skills. But the point here is that now everything is digital. So from a skilling perspective, there are a couple of key areas within each technology which are needed for employees and which as an organization, we feel we should enable them to learn. But moving back from a skill perspective, I think this will be on the basis of, first of all, for freshers, it will be basis the core skills that are needed, first of all, them to take the next level. And within the organization ecosystem, as and when there is this development need arising out of multiple reasons, whether it is client asking for a requirement, whether it is an employee's aspiration to move into a particular role, or it is a go-to-market strategy for the organization. So we align our capability building around those lines. So I could take a name of so many technologies, but the point here is the fact remains is that if a particular client needs a particular technology, whether it is Azure, AWS, Google, then obviously you'll have to develop those skills. The whole in basics of cloud remain the same. But what you need to look at is which of them is your need of the client, and accordingly you have to work out a solution. Now, as far as the shelf life being so short that you mentioned, see, from fundamentals, building the next level of skills is not difficult. Once you know you have evolved and developed a strategy for a group of employees to get into cloud, then whether it is Azure or AWS or Google or any specific technology, it all depends on how you want to kind of each organization, how do you want to skill them. That is how I see it. So it's not a single way of doing it. It's not one size fits all. You have to customize, you have to evolve basis the needs of each organization and their clients.
Very interesting, Deepak, and very valid points out there. I really like the way you put, core skills, and the fact is that, if you know your basics, you can pick up the other things which are evolving with the time. So really interesting out there. Raghav, coming to you, because, you see things, for different industries, and you have a vantage point, so as to say. So what do you say? What are some of the trends that you've observed about the in-demand skills, and how will they transform the future?
Yeah, so happy to share some of the insights we are seeing, Pooja. See, globally as well as in India, we end up working with close to 85 million learners who come to our platform, and 6,000 organizations who run platform programs on our platform. And before I talk about skills, maybe a slightly broader context, right? So we are seeing that this whole digital transformation wave that started with COVID, it is continuing to accelerate. It started early last year, and most of us have said that, what would have happened in 10 years has happened in 1 year, and so on. So a lot of companies, whether they be in the manufacturing industry, in the retail industry, in the healthcare industry, in the consumer products industry, firstly, many companies are accelerating the pace at which they are doing technology investments. And this thing that we used to hear earlier, that every company is becoming a technology company, is actually becoming true in many industries. So that's one thing that we're seeing. The second thing that we're seeing is that many companies have said or are saying that even after the pandemic, we will continue to work from home and we will continue to have remote teams. It's not that the pandemic will get over and everybody will come back to office. And the third thing that we have seen is that many companies have said that we are undergoing digital transformation, but our employees feel they are not ready for this digital transformation because the kind of skills that you need to have is not necessarily available. And then organizations like World Economic Forum and Microsoft, etc., have said that there have been so many job losses in traditional companies and traditional jobs, but in digital jobs, there's a lot of growth that is likely to happen. So, I think Microsoft data says that between 2021 and 2025, there's going to be 150 million new jobs that will be created around the world, of which 30 million will be in India. And a lot of those are in cybersecurity, data analysis, cloud, software, and so on and so forth. And we're seeing this, I'm seeing this with many companies who are in the technology services industry, like Deepak's company, that the opportunity to grow business and the opportunity, or I should say the need to have people with the right skills for these new digital jobs is very, very stark, right? You need to scale up people at a quick pace and be able to scale up people at a wide pace as well. Now, in all of this context, what's interesting is that we've seen what people were learning on the Coursera platform in 2019 shifted quite dramatically in 2020. And it's something which is helpful to kind of talk about. So thousands of skills can be learned on the Coursera platform. Of those in 2019, the top 10 skills that were learned on our platform by millions of working professionals were Python, artificial intelligence, algorithms, business strategy, communication, supply chain, cloud, and so on. But in 2020, when the pandemic hit, what we saw was a dramatic shift. So people started learning writing, strategy, still Python, but also skills like mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, kindness, listening, and so on. And so when the pandemic hit, we saw the shift from functional to human skills that happened as well. And when I look around at research from World Economic Forum and other organizations, it seems like the future will be a combination of digital skills and human skills. We are seeing many software engineers, many team leaders who would very internal to their organization today interact with their clients as well. And so along with the sharp digital skills and the other skills that Deepak spoke about, the need for communication, the need for team leadership, the need for virtual work, those kind of skills are becoming quite important as well. And so how does one skill at a fast pace across a large number of people, given the business opportunity, but do a combination of technology, digital data, and human skills? I think that's the challenge that, I would imagine many leaders like Deepak are working on solving as well.
Pooja, I just want to
Yes.
add to Raghav's point. I think
Hmm.
he brought about a very valid point of the life skills or human skills which have suddenly come back. And what I've been seeing so far is the need for specific areas within these elements have become very predominant. I'll just take one or two examples. Is in the last 2 years, individuals have been working from homes, and their behavioral patterns have changed. The way they respond to a particular criticality has changed. The way they bring out ideas has changed. The way a salesperson does sales has changed. And in this context, the need for those behavioral elements has become very predominant. And one more thing which will also happen now is with this coming back to office, again, the need will arise in terms of bringing some additional changes to the way you have been working so far. So, beyond the technology and other areas, I think this element now we'll see a lot of trainings coming in within within any organization when you see learnings across.
Yes, I totally agree. And so, my Deepak, my next question to you is like, okay, we need digital skills, we need human skills, we need behavioral skills, and probably behavioral skills will become more important not only for business, also for your personal well-being and wellness. It also teaches you how to stay calm in anxious moments or during uncertainty. So, what is your big strategy, the best practices you have in place for continuous reskilling and upskilling of employees?
When I see reskilling, upskilling in the current market or in the current system in any organization, the whole idea, I'm giving a learning and development perspective, Pooja, here. So till a point, we were working with businesses to say what kind of capabilities you want to develop. So our focus was on developing capabilities. You have a SAP business, so develop these set of skills. You have a cloud business, you develop these set of skills. But from capabilities, now it's gone to a granular level of skills needed to play specific roles. And how can I be better in those roles? So there's a very big focus on skills. So when I see as a best practice, what we are trying to look at is, first of all, the amount of the effort that we used to put in to be connected with the business, be at a business decision, be at the table, have a seat at the table on business decisions. I think those are the places where we have now got a seat to look at where is the skill shortage, what kind of skills are needed. So that is from a business point of view. That's one part where the business now is coming and telling us, hey, these are the 3-4 skill areas where I know I'm going to be needing your support, and we need to develop these skills for our employees. Second is from an employee perspective, the whole thing is moving towards personalization. And Raghav would vouch for this, that every single employee is different and they want to see their own learning journeys which have been created for them specifically. So what we are trying to look at as one of the best practices is also to see how can we offer our employees, first of all, the career pathing of what can be done, what kind of skills should you develop, what is the industry talking about, and then also giving them the freedom to select that, hey, I am at this level and I want to move to this level, what kind of skills I should be needing, and then providing them with the necessary infrastructure or knowledge base to do this. And one more thing to be looked at from here is, it's not about just courses to be provided. I think you might have heard this statement: courses, resources, not courses. This is one of the prominent speakers talking about it. But the idea is that beyond just courses, you have to look at a good ecosystem of practice environments, a good ecosystem of assessment platforms put together. So what we are looking at is primarily, as a best practice, is to look at business focus. And second is also to look at individual employee. What is the persona? What is it that they need? And then creating those kind of learning assets for them. So a skill-based approach and a targeted approach is what I see as something which will really work.
These are great points. If I can add a few points in addition to what Deepak shared. So we did a study last year, Pooja and Deepak, and we said, let's see if there's a correlation between the skill proficiency of the employees of a company and the business performance of that company. And we found that those companies that have higher skill proficiency in their employees actually have a strong stock performance as well. So it seems like, and you would imagine this is intuitive, but when we showed this to many business leaders, they said, oh, this is great because you're saying that if I invest in the learning and development of my employees, it's going to drive business performance. And we saw this last year and we showed this to many CXOs and they really liked it. And I think as a result of some of this conversation, what has happened is that the role of the L&D leader, Deepak's role has become so much more important. He was talking about a seat at the table. I think he's in the middle of the table because of the importance of L&D that, we have seen in the last 1.5 years. So we've seen that as one thing that has happened. The second thing that we've seen is the most successful programs that I see, across the thousands of programs that we run are what I would call skills first learning programs. And these are programs that help develop critical skills for critical roles. These are not in general, people should learn, so let's give them learning. What Deepak said, let's not give resources, let's not give courses for generic purpose, but let's focus on critical skills for critical roles. And so let's focus on skills first learning. And then the third element is many of these programs focus not just on classic metrics of measuring learning hours and completions and so on and so forth, but on actual skill development, which skills were developed, how long did it take to develop those skills, what were the business objectives that were achieved as a result of those skills that were developed, what is my skill inventory as an organization, is it measurable, can I track it over the last 6 months, can I track it over the last 12 months, can I benchmark with my peers and my competitors to say, look, I'm strong here and I'm weak here, so let me build this. So this level of ability to measure and almost navigate this whole universe of skills first learning is possibly the third element that I see in some of the best practice learning programs that I have come across as well.
And Pooja, just to add to that, it's not about hours anymore. It is not about learning hours anymore. I mean, at this point, learning is part of work itself. I mean, every single day there's some learning which is happening. Why unnecessarily look at tracking hours or make 40 hours mandatory and expect the end of the year when people have to complete those 40 hours, they'll rush for doing something? Doesn't make sense. What you need to look at now is that employees should have, stuff which is available to them at the point of need. And now it is going at a micro level. When I see value add that I can drive, I think I can drive value by one being part of one of, not just one, multiple of those key accounts that my company is servicing or clients that they're servicing. And in each of them, if I'm able to either sustain the revenue stream and also add to the revenue stream in some way or the other by upskilling individuals, maybe getting higher billable rates, I think that is more value out of learning rather than just providing courses.
Interesting, Deepak. So Deepak, to that, I would like to ask you, so what are some of the features you look for when you are hunting for a learning platform, or you're developing one, or you're looking for partnerships? So, what are those things that you look for?
The very first one is obviously the alignment to the need. Each organization specializes in specific areas. Everyone, I mean, that's the reason why they exist within this larger IT ecosystem. There's so many companies and each one of them specializes. So obviously the very first thing we look at is what our platforms are providing. Is it in alignment to the needs of the business from a content perspective? And this is where we also look at the kind of skills which are needed. They call it as T-shaped, I-shaped skills. So you look at I-shaped where you're looking at only depth of skills, or when you're looking at T-shaped, you're talking about a breadth of skills available, and then you're getting depth in one of them. And in the current way you service your clients, you also look at their individuals multi skills getting utilized across multiple accounts as well. So you have to first decide on what is your skill landscape looking like and whether it is aligned from a content perspective. That's one part of it. But the second part of it is also when you're looking at key areas which are required in depth, which is in the T shape, the vertical bar. You also need to look at which of these providers can provide you that kind of depth in the content. Now, everything is becoming virtual. So one more challenge is how do I ensure that I'm able to replicate the instructor-led training, which used to happen in a classroom where there was an instructor, there was hands-on exercises being done. If I'm able to replicate this in a virtual environment through some particular technology implementations, can we do that? Whether it is a set of virtual labs, assessment tools, some online mentoring, whatever is possible, can this be made available within this platform? The next level that this is moving towards is also to look at, can I look at personalizing learning? So if I have a skill need, I have a specific need from a skill perspective, as an individual employee, can I have some kind of a personalized learning journey for myself, for my employees? So that is one more area that we also look at. But these are the ones which now play a very vital role. And what Raghav was alluding to was on the skills part of it. I have this vision that somewhere I should be able to see a metrics of mean skill index of my company. Can I see a periodic movement in the skills? And I know this is where I'm falling short. And can I see that? Can I look at doing interventions quickly on that? And that too happening on a kind of a real-time mode would something which will really be far-fetched. But yes, somewhere down the line, that is something which will really help us. And that is what I'm looking forward to. So Pooja, that's how, the last piece of analytics and visualization is also critical from a requirement of a platform.
Yes, I think data will play a key role,
Yeah.
So who can give you the kind of data wherein you can have real-time decision-making with respect to, where to go and how to scale.
Yeah. And it's not just inside perspective. There's an outside in perspective also you need to look at, because you need to look at what kind of skills are needed in the market, what job roles, what is the market talking about, what are the various analysts and various other portals where what are they saying about skill needs. I think all that has to come together.
And, we've been very closely listening to some of this feedback that Deepak shared, because one of the things, or I should say two of the things that I'm reminded of. So Deepak spoke about virtual labs as being a need, and I think it's a very, very valid point. We launched guided projects on Coursera late last year, which is along the same lines as what you mentioned. And then I think the ability to measure almost on a live kind of a model, right? The skills inventory, how it is changing, what's happening in the market. And we launched something called Skills Development Dashboard late last year. Again, excellent feedback in terms of, what's needed. And I think that's where some of this is really, really helpful to understand as well. Thank you for sharing that.
So we just have time for one last question. Raghav, if you can share some criteria which enterprises can follow to assess and evaluate their learning strategy. So that'll be useful.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in linking all of this to business outcomes, Pooja, if I may. And, we've actually thought about this a lot, right? Because there are companies who say, look, our learning strategies, our learning investments are a no-brainer. We will do this irrespective of anything without measuring it. And there are companies who say, look, we want to be able to measure this, right? And after having studied this carefully and spent some time understanding this, again, I think that some of the best practices are to be able to measure outcomes, because again, if you can measure something, you can improve it. And I've seen companies do 4 things as a part of looking at what are some of their best practices. They tend to focus on, did my learning program deliver on my business goals, right? So we work with a large tech services company in India, and they said, look, we want to go from 20% of our business being digital to 35% of our business being digital services. And as a part of that, we want to train our sales team, which is 3,000 people, on digital skills, right? So did you train your sales team correctly, and did that result in more business on the digital side? Second thing I think that companies do is they say, look, we are investing a lot in technology, but we're not fully using that technology. And can we train people using guided projects, virtual labs, to fully use that technology, right? If you're adopting data science, you're probably using a platform like Tableau or Looker. Now, to be able to use these platforms, you need to provide learning and development, right? I was talking to the CHRO of a professional services company, and they're implementing an HRMS, human resource management system. And his view was that, look, I'm using only 15% of the capability of that HRMS. Now, if I had an ability where an individual could come in and take a project and within 1 hour understand how to use this platform, it would really deliver strong outcomes for my organization. And so companies focus on that as well. And then outside of that, I think employee retention still continues to be an objective that L&D serves. And the fourth one, which I think has become even more important, especially in India now, when we're talking about talent wars and tech companies are giving motorbikes and holidays in Switzerland to be able to attract tech talent, is reducing talent acquisition costs and building a talent pipeline to be able to reduce talent acquisition costs as well. So I've seen best practices around companies focusing on all these four elements, or at least 2 or 3 of these elements, of saying, look, we want to drive business outcomes with our learning programs. And here are possibly 4 buckets that our learning programs can help us deliver.
And these are very interesting insights, Raghav. Thank you for sharing that. So we've had a wonderful conversation today with Deepak and Raghav. And, we've seen the future of learning and how learning is not a support function, but it's a main function. And it's so connected to achieving your organizational goals, penetrating new markets, and escalating your customer satisfaction. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Pooja.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.